We've covered a lot of SCPs on this channel, but trust us, none of them have quite the bite that this one does. We know you like the more intellectual anomalies, and this will give you plenty to chew on in that regard. While the SCP Foundation wants to keep SCP-5940 a secret, here at SCP Explained we're gonna give you the tooth, the whole tooth, and nothing but the tooth. Truth. I meant truth. This SCP, thankfully, isn't as existentially threatening as a lot of the other ones we cover, but just because it won't send you on an express trip to the pearly gates doesn't mean it won't wreak havoc on your pearly whites. Open wide and say ah, because today we're getting into an anomaly that affects each and every one of us. Tell us, have you ever felt anxious about your teeth? Ever had that weird dream where all your teeth fall out, or even worse, someone pulls them out? Does the thought of us taking a hammer to your teeth, or them rotting away someday and making you need dentures, make you shudder and cringe? Don't be ashamed. The answer to this question for most people would be a resounding yes. And that's because of humanity's shared psychodental trauma. Don't know what that is? Well, that's fine too. After all, the Foundation has taken pains to hide all of this from you, for fear that even knowing about it might incur further psychodental stress. It's that kind of subtle but constant creeping dread you experience in a dentist's waiting room, knowing it's been too long since the last time you came in, and now you're fully anticipating him saying something like, "Well, it's a real mess in here. I'm afraid we're gonna have to take them all, and I'm gonna charge you double just because they look so unpleasant." If that feels grimly familiar to you, then you know exactly what we're talking about today. The SCP Foundation searched long and hard to find the source of this peculiar collective trauma, which, ironically, is a major factor in people not actually visiting the dentist more often, and has found the source in question to be as ancient as it is strange. To best explain exactly what we're dealing with here, we need to take a trip to the North Pole, though sorry to tell you that today's SCP is not, in fact, Santa's workshop. It's actually the northernmost point of inaccessibility, a part of the world that's nearly impossible to reach, simply by virtue of being the cluster of Arctic ice pack furthest away from any landmass, always moving and shifting. But if through some means you were ever able to make your way up there, you would find an impossibly large pair of maxillary incisors, which in layman's terms is a giant pair of front teeth. So while there may not be Santa's grotto up there, if all you want for Christmas is your two front teeth, then buddy, you're in luck. Incidentally, these two giant teeth embedded into the ground and dubbed SCP-5940 by the SCP Foundation are connected to the two front teeth of every human being on Earth. Think of it as almost a pair of giant voodoo dolls, but their effects on each individual human are relatively mild. That's because the effects are actually distributed across all humans, and the more humans there are, the less damage to the enormous pair of teeth will affect each of us. The problem is humans have 8 incisors. They're the two sets of 4 front teeth on the upper and lower jaw, and this pair of teeth covers only 2 of them. What about the rest? Well, next on our roster is SCP-5940-2. Let's join intrepid scientist and explorer Dr. John E. Namel, who has no affiliation with the SCP Foundation, on his quest to find them. Dr. Namel and his small team brave brutal colds and obscene treks through ice and snow to finally discover this grand creation near the southern pole of inaccessibility, the point of Antarctica furthest away from the Southern Ocean. When he and his men finally arrived, they gazed upon the incredible pair of teeth in awe, a mighty set of mandibular central incisors, otherwise known as the front teeth on the bottom jaw. The Foundation believes that the only way to truly solve the problems that SCP-5940 poses is to remove the various teeth from the areas where they're currently lodged. However, the Foundation doesn't yet possess the technology or resources to properly dislodge any of these behemoths. However, the psychic anticipation of the impending tooth removal has caused the psychodental trauma of people all over the world to skyrocket in the meantime. In a sense, it's like the entire world is sitting outside the dentist's office, waiting for a prognosis and hoping that when the dentist pulls out their pair of surgical pliers, they at least have the decency to give us a hit of the laughing gas first. However, the Foundation has discovered an interesting fact in the meantime. The effects of the teeth on the global population can be slightly mitigated by enacting certain forms of concussive trauma on them. And to perform this act for the greater good of the Earth's psychodental condition, Dr. John E. Namel and those accompanying him made the ultimate sacrifice, knowing on a subconscious level what they must do. they began to turn their equipment into a kind of makeshift diving board above the giant incisors. Once the board was complete, the adventurers each took turns jumping off of it, gaining speed as they rocketed down towards the teeth below. As each of them hit the sharp upper edges of the teeth, they were cut in half, leaving a smear of red against the shining white calcium. The two halves of their bisected bodies fell down into the piles of frozen bones on either side of the teeth's base, all that remained of prior brave heroes who'd made their final pilgrimage to the site of SCP-5940. While none of these various expeditions were in any way officially related to the SCP Foundation, the Foundation nonetheless extended honorary Foundation stats of merit to those who decided to take the plunge for the collective psychodental health of their fellow man. For SCP-5940-3, we have to go deeper, literally. It's at the bottom of the ocean. Namely, it sits below Point Nemo, also known as the oceanic point of inaccessibility, the furthest point away from land in the entire world's oceans. This next absurd pair of teeth, some mandibular lateral incisors, lurk below the churning ocean waves like well, there's nothing really like a giant pair of underwater teeth, is there? Thankfully, the position of these teeth have been serendipitous. Not only does their remoteness make them much harder for civilians to just stumble upon, but Point Nemo has always been a popular spacecraft graveyard. This means that during tests and sometimes even actual missions, the return trips are often piloted towards Point Nemo to prevent the risk of any errant spacecraft pieces from landing in populated areas and causing damage or death. Remember we mentioned earlier that the Foundation encourages repeated concussive attacks against the teeth to ward off their psychodental effects? Here, the pieces of spacecraft blasting into the water towards them fulfill that role. At the latest measurement, 126 of the 263 spacecraft ditched at this pole since 1971 had successfully collided with this particular pair of teeth, giving them perhaps the weakest output of psychodental trauma of any of the SCP-5940 instances. And while the furthest point in the ocean from any major land masses may seem about as remote as it gets, the last instance of SCP-5940 easily blows it out of the water. Well, not literally, but if it did, that would be a wonderful example of a problem taking care of itself, wouldn't it? The last instance of SCP-5940, SCP-5940-4, a pair of maxillary lateral incisors, live on the dark side of the moon. Yep, dentists and Pink Floyd fans of the world rejoice. You're probably wondering, while the first 3 pairs of teeth clearly grew on Earth, why is the 4th a pair of more lunar incisors? Studies performed by the Foundation on the soil around the base of the 4th set of teeth prove that they actually did originate on Earth. They believe to have split from Earth during the incident which formed the moon. This means that these teeth are literally older than the moon, and this also makes them billions of years older than humanity. So these giant teeth don't look like our incisors. Our incisors look like these giant teeth. So now we finally understand this ridiculous threat to our collective psychodental health. Move over, SCP-682, and step aside, Devourer of Worlds. Get the hell out of my face, Scarlet King. We can't deal with any of you small-timers until we solve the global psychodental health crisis posed by SCP-5940. Which elite heavy hitters have the Foundation put on the case to deal with these enamel nightmares? Meet the Department of Psychodentistry, a joint venture formed from the collaboration of the Psionics Division, a task force that specializes in psyche SCPs, the Department of Memetics, and most importantly of all, the Dentistry Division. You may be thinking, why does the SCP Foundation even need a Dentistry Division? That seems like a waste of time and resources. And if you're thinking that, you're not only wrong, you probably have horrible teeth. The Dentistry Division is the first and last line of defense that the Foundation has against a plethora of toothy anomalies, like SCP-5852, a strange phenomenon that causes human teeth to grow out of the bodies of cicadas, or SCP-2450, a condition that causes hyperdontia, the excessive development of teeth all over the bodies of mammalian creatures, with the infection being spread, appropriately, through bites. And, of course, SCP-478, a predatory moth-like creature that enters the bodies of victims under the age of 25 and attaches itself to the soft palate in the upper nasal cavity. From there, it would promote the unchecked growth of teeth on the soft palate of the victim, but that's just where it starts. Teeth develop all throughout the mouth, nasal cavity, esophagus, and even the interior of the stomach, where the digestion of the teeth leads to excruciating pain. Next time your entire body is filling up with teeth due to SCP-478, you'll really regret underestimating the value of the humble dentistry division. So, what does the new Department of Psychodentistry propose to do with SCP-5940, the ultimate in tooth-based anomalies? Thankfully, they have a plan that will unfold over the next 79 years, known as the Absolute Tooth Field, in all uppercase letters. It's a three-pronged plan that's sure to fully neutralize this dental menace. You see, there's one thing we haven't told you. The psionic relationship between SCP-5940 and the incisors of all of humanity isn't one way. While the giant teeth and what happens to them can affect our teeth, what happens to our teeth can also affect the nature of SCP-5940. And that little fact is the key to the Absolute Tooth Field plan. The first part of the plan involves using memetics to make humans shun birth control globally, accelerating population growth to 4.2% per year for the next 79 years. This will lead to a population of 200 billion humans by the year 2100. The second part will be using memetics to encourage every human to somehow mechanically remove all of their incisors. And the third part will be the most complicated of all, trying to get all these 200 billion humans to remove the same incisors at the same time. The Department of Psychodentistry estimates that this will create the sufficient psychic force to finally pull the various SCP-5940 instances from their moorings, and thus healing humanity's collective psychodental trauma. It is a brilliant plan to take out a dangerous anomaly, and surely 1,600,000,000,000 human incisors is a small price to pay. Now go check out Waldo Finds You, SCP-4885 Find Him, and SCP-2430 Immortal Hitler Clone for more of the absolute weirdest anomalies out there. Oh, and remember to brush your teeth twice a day. You'll thank us later for that.